discuss the next part of our presentation, which is our employer training model that we offer with you all. So this overview training is, again, kind of to get you face-to-face with some of the other subject matter experts. But one of the roles that I've been doing over the last about 10 months maybe is cross-training with some of our other divisions, like our employer services division. And as you just indicated, the last part that Ms. Brown had, that solicits a lot of different questions, variables, et cetera. And just a quick example, just last week, so I'm actually managing several employer systems, monthly reports, and different variances that come up. And there was a particular item that came up last week. And this time last year, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on it just yet. But that being said, this time last year, I wouldn't have even been able to have a really intelligent conversation about what the issues were. A lot of the jargon that we were using was unfamiliar to me about a year ago. So I definitely appreciate all of the help that our employer services division specialists have helped me out with in understanding, and Cherie and her group have definitely been very helpful in that aspect. Now, I'm actually going to be transitioning. Don't have a complete date just yet, but in the next few months, I'll actually be transitioning to a similar cross-training with our retirement services division, and I'll have them coming on here shortly after my presentation. But again, as you all see, there's a lot of different variables, questions that you have, and what I've always said over the years of doing this is that I know a little bit about everything going on with TRS, but now I'm getting more of the hands-on integral details so that when you've got a question about this particular report, this particular item, something that comes up on a monthly basis that I just did not deal with on a day-to-day basis, I'm much more familiar with how to help you understand and again, cross-correlative, help you to do your job more efficiently and also on our end as well. So that's the value in what I offer in our employer training program, where I will come out to you either one-on-one. So obviously the majority of you all are in the Metro Atlanta area. A few are kind of a little bit outside of our metro area. But what my role is I actually either travel to you or do a virtual training with you where I'll do overview about what TRS is, how it works in relation to all of your employees, what we call members, different pieces of information that they will need in order to make sure that they have a smooth transition into retirement. So that's one piece of it. But then also from your working standpoint, helping you to more efficiently do your job in relation to information that TRS needs. All right, and so I kind of alluded to this just a moment ago, who we serve. So I'm kind of a one-person shop with this for right now. So obviously the state of Georgia has a lot of different counties, 152 counties, 400 plus employers. And so I'm stretched a bit thin. So sometimes you have to be a little bit patient with the timing in when we can schedule one of these trainings. So what I am utilizing is, one, the resources that I have with our employer services division, retirement services division, somewhat with our member services division as well. I don't want to neglect them, but a lot of what I've done in the past of my career is really kind of cross-correlative to member services. So I don't need to utilize those resources as much. But again, whatever resources that I can pull from, sometimes I'm using those. But I'm also trying to get out to you all as quickly as I possibly can. So sometimes it'll need to be a virtual format. One of the reasons why I actually scheduled this particular training here in Atlanta was that, and I know all of us can identify with this, is the commute. And so getting to all of you all, I live in Gwinnett, so getting to all of you all can be a little bit taxing from a commuting standpoint. So I said, well, you know what? Let me bring a whole group of folks here in our Atlanta office, and I can kind of kill two birds with one stone, get most of you all in the Atlanta area that have some questions, and then I can concentrate on some of the far, outer reaches as well. But again, long story short, patience, in terms of scheduling these events or sessions, but definitely something that you will find a value. Some of you all have already utilized that resource. But again, those that have not and have a need for it, particularly, I know we have, I don't know, 5 or 6 probably charter school systems. There's some unique needs that you all have. Most of what TRS does is the same across the board for whatever type of employee that you have, but there are some unique circumstances to charter schools and some of our other employer systems. So definitely take advantage of whatever resources that we're able to offer to you. So these are some of the topics that I will discuss in the employer training session. And what I always tell folks, so I'll let you know how you can schedule one of these events. And then what I usually do is I'll do kind of a preliminary Q&A to get an idea of what you're most needing answers on and help with, et cetera. And then I'll focus on those topics. So some of these topics I'll talk a lot about, some I'll talk less about, some I may not hit at all, kind of just depending on your needs. So I really try to tailor the training to your specific needs so that, we're making the most out of our time together. So we'll discuss one of the really important topics, particularly for the employer services division, is a lot of times you may not even be aware of who to go to ask a particular question. So who do you contact at TRS for this question versus this question? We'll talk about that. Different contract types, as we mentioned. I think we spent some a good amount of time on our last presentation talking about the differences between 11 and 10 month and how that can vary. So we'll work through some of those kind of questions. TRS plan basics. That has always been kind of my comfort zone because that's what I've done the majority of my career with TRS. So just discussing, what TRS is. It's a 401A plan, which is a pension plan, which gives you all, from an employer standpoint, a lot of leverage in your hiring. You have something to offer individuals that a lot of employers will not have access to, which is a pension plan. So helping you to understand how that works. It's also important for yourself because as far as I know, pretty much I think I have a couple of the individuals that are not actually TRS members that represent TRS employers, but for the most part, most of you all are TRS members as well. So this is going to be important for understanding for you personally as well. We'll talk about TRS membership eligibility, some of the variances to that, not a whole lot in relation to public school systems and charter school systems, other than like some of the non-supervisory positions that Sharia touched on a little earlier, or actually I think she touched on the supervisory positions, but not the non-supervisory, but non-supervisory, Board of Education, maintenance workers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodial staff. They're not eligible for TRS membership, but in a supervisory position they are, but not required to join. We'll talk about how that works and what the importance of having documentation in file so that you make sure that you're covering both yourself from an employer standpoint and also doing what's best for that employee/member as well. So we'll discuss membership eligibility and again, variables to that. I think she had talked about like the age 60 part of it, that if an individual is 60 years of age, they don't have to join, maybe some of the reasons why they may want to join. We'll also discuss that 65-40 issue and how that works. We'll talk about compensation, supplements, stipends, bonuses. So as Cherie was alluding to, so a lot of what I discussed actually was kind of headway with Cherie's part. Some of the variables in relation to what's the difference between a supplement versus a stipend versus a bonus, and what needs to be reported to TRS. We'll also talk about the difference between service credit and salary. She had alluded to that a little earlier as well, and how service credit correlates to that person's retirement benefit, reporting leave without pay, how that can affect someone's retirement benefit over the long term. We'll talk about navigating the employer desktop. I do some different demonstrations on our website as well. So different reports that you need to send over to us. We'll go through where you access those, how they look, what you need to do in relation to it. And another big piece is the return to work. So retirees returning to work, there's specific requirements, both from a legal standpoint, TRS policy that can dictate how and when someone can return to work. So all encompassing a lot of different topics. So what I really appreciate again from just TRS's perspective is how we take education, financial literacy, et cetera, so very seriously. And that's one of the kind of pieces to why we offer this training program, so that we can be a really good conduit to both your work duties and also your membership as well. So just giving you kind of a little snippet of a few parts of the employer training. So from a plan basic standpoint, and again, important for all of you all to understand is, when it's my time to retire, how do they calculate my retirement? What's my eligibility, et cetera. So we talk about the years of TRS creditable service, how that varies for individuals. So for instance, creditable service is the important piece to that factor. We had alluded to a little bit about the possibility of individuals purchasing service. So the creditable service is the service credit that is earned as a TRS member, whether that be worked or whether that be a combination of purchase or even unused sick leave, and how that works in relation to calculating someone's retirement benefit. Then we'll talk about the 2% multiplier. So years of service times 2%. So whatever number of years of service that individual has, take that number, multiply it times 2. That gives them a percentage. So for instance, if I got a 30-year career, 30 times 2 yields me 60% of my high average salary. So what is high average salary? High average salary is we take the highest consecutive 24 months of salary, wherever that is in someone's TRS career, we average that out and we utilize that percentage that they're going to draw of that high average salary as their basic monthly payment under what's called Plan A maximum plan. And there's some different plan options that are available, and I go into more detail about how the different plan options work. I give different scenarios as to, this situation and how this would work for someone, what this would look like if the variables were a little different. So giving you a lot of different pieces of information so that you can help your employees, again, what we call members. One of the things that I discuss or have found throughout the years of doing this, it's a little different in the metro area because, of course, a lot of these systems are larger, and I'm dealing with all the different systems across the state. But even with some of the larger systems, a lot of times they don't know who TRS is, but they know who you are, of course, as their employer. And so they're going to contact you, I need this, or tell me about this. And so I kind of give you some basic information about how you can answer some of those questions, and then also give you the resources to point them in the right direction with TRS as well. So, base information, help you individually, help employees in your system, and then where to reach out to as well. And then the different plan options, as I've alluded to just a moment ago, I'll give you a quick synopsis of how those work. So Plan A maximum plan, as it sounds like, maximizes that person's monthly benefit. But, and this is kind of going back a little while back, probably when I first started my career with TRS, roughly around 70% of retirees were choosing Plan A maximum plan. And one of our points of mission is to be a pension educator. And so that's not to say that Plan A maximum plan is not the right plan for some individuals, but it may not necessarily be the right plan for 70%. In fact, I would gather to say, quite frankly, for 70% of our retiree demographic, Plan A maximum plan is probably not the best plan for 70% of individuals, because it is only going to pay that retiree their monthly benefit. And if they're needing to leave something to someone else on a monthly basis, it's not going to accomplish that. So you would have people oftentimes not quite understanding that, not being educated about how all the different plan options work. And they would just look at, okay, this is the most I'm going to get. This is what I'm going to go with. So educating our membership on the different options that they have available. So for instance, that second bubble of plans, options 2 through 4, Those are the plan options that fit the needs for a lot of our retirees, which are people that have a spouse, have children, whomever that they would want to leave a lifetime benefit to past their death. Then those plan options work for those individuals, but they do have to take a little bit less per month. So we, talk to you about how those plan options work, and then also how they can schedule individual retirement counseling sessions with us, and also how we can come out to you all in the field as well to speak with them about how their plan options work and make sure that they are making the best decision for themselves over the long term. One of the worst things that I see, just throughout my career is that you'll have individuals that either are working longer than they really want to, or they're having one difference to work after retirement because you want to, or having to work after you've completed a long career. So hopefully putting those things in place so that they are able to make the decisions that are best for them and that they're able to really enjoy their retirement. And we'll talk about purchasing service. One of the questions a little earlier was kind of alluding to, I think it was basically, well, can they just purchase service or something to that effect? And Carlos had mentioned, well, if they have service in order to purchase. So I'll give you an idea of the different parameters in terms of what service is available, what is not. Generally speaking, we don't just arbitrarily let people buy service. There is one exception to that rule, but there's still some rules connected to it as well. So like, for instance, the withdrawn service, we've talked about a couple of different times, is if somebody does a refund of contributions. So we talked about that refund of contributions. Well, oftentimes, as you all know, they'll leave and come back, leave and come back. So they can come back after 3 years of being in a TRS job, they can reestablish that withdrawn account. There's value in that in and of itself, but also specific to the health insurance question, that may help them meet the criteria to have that health insurance premium at a lower rate than they would otherwise. So again, a lot of different reasons why they might want to do that. Out-of-state service, same kind of thing. It's connected to them having worked in a job that would have made them TRS eligible had they worked here in the state of Georgia. So there's some parameters around that. So I discussed that. So again, most of the services, there's several others as well, but most of them are connected to you having worked in the education field in some capacity and been a TRS member or something similar to that. Airtime is the exception, but they've got to have at least 25 years of TRS service in order to be eligible for the airtime. So again, that's something that we work through in terms of how they can purchase that and the pros and cons on that as well. And then the sick leave conversion. So we talked a little bit about sick leave a little earlier, how it relates to someone's retirement benefit. Specifically, it adds on to their years of service. So like there was a question about like 29.667, and let's say that they are, well, first of all, let me kind of backtrack just a little bit, just eligibility wise. So if a person has 30 years of TRS creditable service, doesn't matter how old they are, they're eligible for the retirement benefit right away. So 30-year career, combination of work and sick leave, maybe they're 52 years of age. So under normal circumstances, they wouldn't be eligible for retirement through TRS without the 30 years. The sick leave can be very important in that case. So let's say they got 29 years and they've got, and I know this is a little hard to see, but you can find the chart several different places on our website and some other material that I'll give you as well as a follow-up to this. But let's say they have 170 days of unused sick leave. That would give them an additional year of service. So they have the 29 plus the year of service. And even though they're 52 years of age, they're eligible for the retirement benefit right away. So that's why the sick leave can be very important in that case. Let's say they've got, they're already 60 years of age, but they only have 20 years of service. The sick leave, in that case, I kind of always say it'll just be an add-on, so to speak. They're already eligible, so they don't have to wait on the sick leave from that standpoint. They got 20 years, but they're 60 years of age. We'll get the sick leave calculated on the back end, as Carlos was alluding to earlier. So we'll get that sick leave calculated after their termination date. but then we'll just add it on, and then they would have 21 years in my example in that case. So it's really important if I don't have 30 years and I want to go ahead and retire, my sick leave is going to be very important in terms of whether or not I'm eligible without a penalty. If I'm already eligible, the sick leave is just going to add on to it. So it's not, a make or break in that situation. And then how you certify the unused sick leave. So one of the questions that we've had throughout the morning is in relation to like paper requests. So former employees will oftentimes come to you all and say, hey, I want to get my unused sick leave verified. Maybe they were with DeKalb County Schools. They're now with Clayton County Schools. If you can verify that unused sick leave previously when they were with you all, that'll be done on a paper form, and then they'll send it in to TRS. We'll have it in an electronic file. So I think one of the questions, and I found that funny because I know that comes up all the time, is somebody will ask for sick leave, they'll get it verified, and they'll come back asking for it. So direct them to TRS. We'll have it in their electronic file, and then they don't need to be bothering you about it any longer. But again, that would be a paper form. When they're actually retiring with your system, that's where this electronic version will be done. Pretty similar to the paper form. It's just done electronically. And if they check off that they want to pursue the unused sick leave, which personally I always encourage them to do, so that we'll find out for sure what they have. So again, I'll talk about kind of the variables and how that's calculated, questions that you have. Sometimes there's some questions about transferred in time versus time that the person earned with that particular system. I can help walk you through how that is reported and some of the variances to some of those questions. So again, a lot of different pieces of information that I go over with you. I typically do this training class over about a kind of similar time frame as to what we're doing today, usually a 3 to 4 hour type of training. And then I always have follow-ups with you as well. So again, the other value in the employer training sessions that I offer is that I always kind of ended off with letting you all know that I can be kind of a first point of reference for you. There's some specific items like, again, your monthly reports, whoever your TRS representative is for your system, you'll want to contact them for those kind of specific details. But, just I need to know this particular answer to this question, or I have an employee that asked me this, and I'm going to ask you this question or whatever. You utilize me as a point of resource. I really pride myself in having a good understanding of, everything that we have going on with TRS. So generally speaking, I'm able to answer those questions, right away. But if I need to follow up with you, I'll follow up with you and make sure I get you an answer on that. So, different updates, law, policy changes. And again, I can do the training virtually or in person. And, we'll work it through based on scheduling that I can offer to you. So the easiest way to request events, and this is general, but I'm also speaking on it specifically with the employer training session as well. Different events that we offer, like our new hire presentations and pre-retirement workshop presentations, mid-career presentations, along with my employer training services that I offer. Through the employer inbox, there's a feature, second to the last feature, that says TRS event host request. And if you'll put in a request for an event, that's the easiest way to do it because, quite frankly, from a data standpoint, it goes directly into an inbox, and we're checking that inbox, multiple times a day. Sometimes if you send me a direct email, it may get caught in between other emails or a phone call. A lot of what I do, quite frankly, is out in the field. So reaching me by phone can be hit and miss sometimes. Email certainly is a way to reach me, but the easiest and most efficient way for this particular training session is through that event host request, and we'll make sure we get you on the schedule from that standpoint. Any questions you all have in relation to anything that I've discussed? Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question. So you mentioned that the one-on-one training that you do takes about 3 to 4 hours. The new hire training, like if I requested you for an event, approximately how long is that?
And I think what you're asking about, keep the mic. You asking about our new hire events where you have new employees that are coming in. Okay, that's a little bit different. That's more like an hour-long workshop presentation. Yeah, and then we answer questions on the back end, however long they need to stay around. But yeah, you usually only commit in about an hour. What I was talking about in terms of the employer training itself is I'm gonna sit down with you if you need it and request it one-on-one, and it'll just kind of go as really it's more so dictated on the questions that you have, examples that you may have. You may have specific employees that I'm having a problem reporting this particular piece of information. It may take us an hour to work through that. So that's more, and as I mentioned kind of throughout this presentation, what I'm used to doing, even though I'm formally dressed here, I'm normally pretty informal with our training. So it kind of adjusts. I usually allot 3 to 4 hours, but it may be a couple, it may be more than 4 hours. But to your question, no, that's more of an hour-long type workshop. And all of our workshops are generally 50 minutes to an hour long in terms of new hire presentation, pre-retirement, mid-career. They're typically 50-minute to hour long type deals.
Okay, I'm new on this side, so I'm trying to get some understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you put up that how you calculate their monthly benefit, highest 2 consecutive 24 months. For most districts, it's not consecutive anymore because they're getting raises. And this is the question, the issue that I'm running into when they're calling me. How are these salaries being calculated now since it's not consecutive? I mean, from what I've seen from the last 3 years, I'm going to say 3. How do I refer them to TRS? Then they keep calling me back and then when they go on the portal, does it give them the salaries that it's pulling from to give them that benefit estimate?
So first and foremost, yeah, I absolutely refer them to TRS directly. Some of the issues also again, I hadn't gone into depth on, from this presentation standpoint, but what comes up quite often now is the salary cap situation where they're having a particular salary, they get an increase, another increase even the year behind that. And so that may skew how much of that salary we're able to use towards their retirement benefit. There's kind of a general rule of thumb of salary increases that are under 10% usually do not fall within that salary cap standpoint. Not always the case, but that's kind of a general rule of thumb. But a lot of these increases, quite frankly, to keep good employees around, hopefully, is that increases have been relatively large. So that's skewed some of the estimates that they're able to do on their own. So they can calculate a retirement estimate through the benefit estimate calculator, but that may skew some of it. So they definitely, we encourage them to have a one-on-one meeting with us, either here in the office, here in Atlanta. So that would be efficient for most of our audience here. Also virtual sessions, and if we're out, in your different systems as well. And in terms of the calculation, though, also keep in mind it's going to be an average as well. So, they can't just look at straight salary and say, okay, my salary year 1 was this, year 2 was that. And they have to keep in mind that we're going to average it out as well. But those increases can factor in the amount of salary that is able to be used by state law towards that calculation. So kind of a general answer on that, but more specifically, they definitely want to contact us directly. Yeah. And the onus is going to be on that member, first and foremost, is their retirement. And then secondly or I would say equally, is on TRS as well to explain that to them.